Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the HOMEWORKcast podcast. With me is Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
Hello. I should have said it in Danish. I don't know how to say it, but I'm pretty sure thank you is tag.
Okay. And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, mouth Dork.
Mein Hund hat mein Hausaufgaben gefressen.
That's German.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, and I only know how to say that in English. And welcome to the HOMEWORKcast podcast, HOMEWORKcast. And this episode is Babette's Feast.
Aren't I classy? Don't I give the classiest homework?
Yep. Given to me by wife Dork. And this is a 1987 film. This movie came out the same year as RoboCop. That's what I was thinking about the whole time I was watching this movie, for better or for worse. This film is a Danish film, and Wikipedia says, in a remote 19th century Danish village, two sisters lead a rigid life centered around their father, the local minister, their church, and their church. Both had opportunities to leave the village. That's all I want to say. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
So it's about two sisters in a 19th century Danish village. Centered
Scenic,
around their
it's
father.
beautiful.
It is.
Gray water, thatched roofs.
Yeah. It's a really small village. Really small, like uncomfortably small for me. Like there's no Walmart around. Like
There is no children. There's no children.
Yeah, that's scary.
Did you realize that?
Is that something malevolent like underneath the surface that I didn't pick up on?
Well, because of these two women belong to a puritanical sect of Lutheranism, I guess. And their father had, their mother had passed away, and their father became this pastor, prophet guy. And one of the rules of this sect is that marriage and romantic relationships are artifice that get in the way with your relationship with God. So he's essentially, in this little sect, outlawed marriage and progeny and propagating of the congregation. So everybody in this congregation is getting old and dying because they are not allowed to breed, and they're very isolated. And people wander in and out, but nobody seems to stay.
So, but wasn't there a couple? Remember the couple who said that
the elderly couple.
The wife was like,
That wasn't the wife. So they had a romantic affair, and that was one of their sins that they were bickering about.
So,
but they were never married. That kiss at the end, they were never married. That was like.
Oh, so I thought they were married, but before they got married, they had an affair.
No.
Okay.
No, they were not supposed to have an affair. They were supposed to remain chaste for
Right.
Jesus.
Right, and I remember her saying that, like, will I be forgiven for that? And he's like,
Right.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be cool.
So like a dude.
Yeah.
Even an octogenarian, he's like, God, it'll be cool. Get on this.
Don't worry. So the movie opens up, and it starts out focused on somewhat on the father, but really on the two sisters. And within this village, the two sisters tend to stand out in that firstly they look younger. They're like the youngest people there, aren't they? Because everyone else, or at least the congregation, are all older people, like you mentioned. but the sisters, they stood out.
Because they were stunning. They were just beautiful.
Yeah. And so what happens in the structure of the film, and what kind of, I don't want to say caught me off guard, but it took me a while. Actually, okay, so let's put this out up front. So it took me a while to get engaged with the film. Because the story starts out in the present, sort of. Not in the present like present day, but in within the context, in the framework of the film, in the present tense in the film. It's being narrated, and
and you meet the two sisters, and they're very old.
Yes, and then you see Babette.
Right, and Babette comes in from the cold and the rain, and she seems exhausted, and she just collapses in their tiny hovel.
Well, I mean, even before that, like the very opening shows, it explains that
Babette's in the kitchen.
It explains that she's in the kitchen, and it says, well, we're going to have to explain, we'll tell you how we got to this point.
Okay.
So in doing so, though, we focus on the two sisters, and then, well, one at a time. So the first sister is the one who, there's both, one's Philippa and Martine.
So Philippa is the singer and Martine is the lover.
So we see Martine first, and there's a soldier who makes his way, ends up coming to that village, and he is stricken by her. And
in love, stricken in love, not just like stricken like ill.
Right. And then, but like you mentioned, no one stays in this village for whatever reason. So him being around her and her father, and I guess his teaching in the congregation, he somehow comes to the conclusion that he can't stay there. He has to go out and live a different life.
Right. Well, the thing is, he sees Philippa, and she's a total babe, and they seem to have some kind of initial chemistry. So he decided to continue coming to the pastor's talks.
And he's there because he's been exiled, because he is a
soldier, but he was exhibiting like some debauched behavior, and he was not career-minded. And he was not a serious guy. Yeah. You know, so they send him to this area to live with his aunt and get some fresh air, and he's just riding his horse, and he sees this babe. And so he starts going to these lessons, and but he notices, like, the more he shows up, the less she kind of notices him, and she's not at all moved by him, so he decides to cut loose.
Yes. And so in having that introduction to his character and her, we establish a connection between them. And I don't just mean like regarding like an attraction, but a connection of his character to her character. Because after that, we go to Philippa, who, as you mentioned, is the singer. So there is a performer from Paris.
Yes.
This gentleman is a stage performer and singer. And he ends up hearing Philippa's voice, and he says, well, actually, he takes a break. He wants to get away from the stage life and take a break, and so it's he's referred to this village
by Lauren's wife.
Yes, and so he goes there to kind of reflect on his life and where he is in his career, and he ends up meeting Philippa, and he hears her sing, and he has the idea of coaching her, teaching her, and grooming her to take her back to Paris to sing, but then also for the rest of the world to hear her voice. And
he's a papist. I love that. Papist?
And he has to first get the blessing of their father, which he does, which I was surprised. But
he puts it in the context of, I'll give her voice lessons for the greater glory of the Lord.
Right.
So he puts this spin on it. He doesn't say, and I'm going to make her a star.
Yeah. And then so they begin having their sessions of practice. And during the singing lessons, there's a scene where the father and the other sister, Martine, they can hear the lessons going on. And at first, they're cool with it. I don't know if those, Lisa, you have to correct me. I don't know if it was just like vocal warm-ups or whatever.
Right.
they definitely weren't singing the songs.
Yeah,
that
they were
would
doing
show later on.
vocalises. Yeah, vocalises.
Yeah, and so in hearing that, the father and the other sister, they were pleased, and then everything was cool. So then the sessions go on, and the next scene, the next time that they show them her practicing or being taught, they're singing a song that, from my understanding, would be considered maybe, I guess, secular.
Yeah, it was a segment from Don Giovanni, where Mazzetto is trying to woo whoever the chick is. They're taking back my music degree right now. But it's a very sexually charged scene where two people are falling in love and, deciding that they were going to run away and get married. And by most standards, it would be considered a very chaste love scene.
Yeah.
But in this, area where you're not supposed to fall in love and you're not supposed to get married, it was really scandalous. Plus, I don't think that as a papist, Monsieur Pepin really understood how much he was getting in her space,
right,
and really making her feel quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And making her feel embarrassed.
So during that practice, the father and the other sister could be seen at the table listening, and you could tell that they were having a particular reaction to the words to this song. And so I thought it was going to be a case where the father barges in and says, "Hey, look, you got to go. You can't be singing this shit in my house, or she's not going to go with you, or this is unacceptable." But it turns out, during that scene, as you mentioned, the guy during that practice with her, he was, I guess,
he was acting out the scene and embracing her.
Yeah, they were really close, and you can see how she wasn't used to that. And when that scene ends and he exits the room like on cloud nine, and he's just so smitten with just being there and being able to sing, and her potential and his idea for what he wants to do with her and her career, whatever. And she looks uncomfortable. So the next scene is them at the dinner table, both sisters and the father, and she's the one that says, "I don't want to continue this training." And so the father kindly and respectfully leaves the guy a note saying, "Look, you got to go. She doesn't want to do it anymore." And so, sadly, and the guy, obviously he's sad, but he, without incident, he departs and he heads back to Paris in his little boat. But in doing that, in this little segment, we established a connection with Philippa and this particular gentleman. So now...
And not just the gentleman, but her potential as an extraordinarily talented artist.
Artist, yes. And there's something... excuse me. There's something that he tells her regarding her voice, about how isn't that when he tells her that you'll sing you'll perform for the angels, or
right
whatever?
She has the kind of voice that rich people will want to hear and poor people will want to hear, that unites everybody, and then when you've passed on, you're going to go to heaven and you're going to please the angels. Yeah.
And so after that, their connection or relationship is established. Then we see we have the introduction of Babette, and it's like you mentioned earlier, it's a stormy, rainy night, and she appears on the sister's doorstep. Now, at this point in the story, the father has passed away.
Right. And the two sisters are now very old.
Mm-hmm. They're very old, and the father has passed away, and Babette shows up on their front door. And she is escaping a very harsh life in reality. She has lost her son and her husband to violence.
French Revolution.
And she is seeking asylum there in this place where she could potentially go on to live a nice, peaceful life. And so initially, the two sisters...
and it was Monsieur Pepin who referred her.
Yes, yes. And so initially the sisters say, we are too poor, we can't afford to pay you for your services, because Mr. Pepin said, she is an excellent cook. She can, decorate and, prepare your house for any manner of guests that you may have. She's very, she would be a very good addition to your home. But the sisters say that we don't have enough money, we don't have enough income to pay you or to support you. And then Babette says that, I would do it for free. She just wants to get away from her situation.
She just needs a place to be.
Yeah. And so she works for them, she cooks for them.
I think there's something also very important in that message, and how at the end of his note he talks about how he wistfully thinks of her and the diva she could have been, but now I've had this life as this renowned performer and I'm dying alone, and I imagine you being surrounded with your young fat grandbabies, with your whole big family, and I wonder if you were really the one who made the right choice, which just goes to show that he just really, even in the short time he was with her, he really didn't understand what this puritanical life was for her. And if that was the measure of happiness and success, she had not achieved it either, because she was, aside from her sister and her congregation, alone and childless.
Mm-hmm. And so then we see they're showing her the ropes and, how they prepare the meal.
Do you want some ale and bread soup?
Oh, man. That's hardcore, I tell you.
I imagine if it was like pumpernickel bread, it might be pretty good.
I don't know. But then we fast forward to 14 years later, and Babette says that she's been working for them now for 14 years, and their working relationship, their friendship, obviously over the years has grown. Their bond has grown, and they've more than accepted her and welcomed her to that community, to that village. There are a few scenes where she goes to the local grocer to pick up ingredients for food, and her exchanges with the people there are always pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
So they've
though she's shrewd, she's always ripping off the grocer.
Yeah, but they've accepted her, and so one day she gets a letter proclaiming that she has won the lottery.
Yeah.
And
Monsieur Pepin every year has been renewing her lottery ticket.
Her lottery ticket, yeah, and one day it pays off, and so she brings the mailman brings the letter to the sisters, and then they deliver it to Babette. Babette's in the kitchen. She's preparing a meal, and then she stops and she opens the letter. But the sisters stand there in the doorway, watching her
Hovering.
open it. Yeah, waiting to see what this letter is. And when Babette opens it and reveals it to be a winning lottery ticket, the sisters, they're like, "Oh, that's so good. We're so happy for you." And then they turn around and they leave looking destroyed.
Right.
They just know that this is the end. She's gonna leave, and they're so sad. And it's weird. It just reminds me of like it just reminds me of when I was maybe 10, I think 11 years old. It was Father's Day, and I was on the floor in the living room watching TV, and my dad was sitting on the couch behind me, and my stepmom was in the back, and then the phone rang, and it just kept ringing, and then it stopped ringing, and then my stepmom walked out of the back into the living room, and I have my back to them. I'm on my knees. I was kneeling. Why was I kneeling on the floor watching TV? That's so weird. That's so out of character for me. I don't know. Why was I kneeling instead of sitting like Indian style? Anyway, I was kneeling on the floor, like really up on the TV. Like I could probably reach my hand out and touch the screen. So I don't know why I was that close either. But anyway, she walks out of the back room and she has the phone in her hand and she says, "Smitty, it's for you." And so I do a quick glance over my shoulder to see her, and then I'm back into my TV program. And maybe 2 minutes go by. I don't know. It feels like it was forever. But I just realized, like, I haven't heard my father say hello or anything. I haven't heard him talk. So I turn over my left shoulder to look back at him on the couch, and he looks like he's seen a ghost.
What?
And I'm looking at him, and like, I don't know, you know how, well, with my father, like, I know my dad. Like, as a parent, you know your child. You know their faces, their expressions. You can tell when something's wrong, and vice versa. Like, I grew up with my dad, seeing his face all my life, so I just know when something's not right. And so looking at his face, I go, before I can say what's wrong, he goes, "It's your mother." And, I automatically just start bawling, like my face falls off. But anyway, I say this to say, when Brenda came out of the back room with that phone, she looked like the sisters when they brought Babette that letter. Like, they knew that it was something that was going to take Babette away. They just knew. And like my stepmom, when she brought that phone out the back, she had that same look. And when I saw that in the movie, and so obviously that when the movie, before she opened it, I didn't know what the hell was in the letter. So I was just like, okay, what? But when she opened it, and then Babette claimed to have won the lottery, it made sense why they look like that. And then automatically that moment from my childhood just went back. And I felt so bad for the sisters, because I felt bad for my stepmom, because I understood what the potentiality of that phone call meant. And I understood what the potentiality of that letter meant for Babette and the two sisters. So anyway, sorry. That was just a weird thing that watching that movie that popped up. And I was like, man. So anyway, they leave the room, and they think, obviously, well, she's won this money. It was like 10,000 francs. 10,000 francs. Yep. She's going to leave us. And so I'm thinking, oh man, she's not going to leave, or if she does, this movie's called Babette's Feast, so maybe she's going to throw a feast before she leaves to say, hey, look, I got to go live my life, but before I go, I'm going to throw you this feast to show you how much I appreciate you taking me in and everything like that. So I was like, all right, that's probably how it's going to go. So she goes to them and she says, I would like to do, because the anniversary of the birthday of their father is coming up.
100th anniversary.
Yes. And so what they're going to do is the congregation is going to get together and they're going to fellowship, have maybe some drinks or some bread or some bread soup or whatever.
Some fish soaked 3 times.
Yeah. And just, read the word, fellowship, talk about, the dad or whatever. And then that's it. Nothing too fancy. And Babette knows this, but she says that she asks them, I would like to prepare the meal for this celebration that you're going to have. And then the sisters say, no. And she says, no, but I insist. I would like to prepare a French meal. Mm-hmm. And so at first the sisters are reluctant, but Babette says, all the years that I've been here, I've never asked for anything. And the sisters agree. They say, you know what, you're right. You haven't, and this is, we'll let you do this. And so Babette says, but on the one condition that I buy all of the ingredients. And again, the sisters refuse, absolutely not. And Babette insists. So they say, okay, they relent. So we see,
and she also asks for a few days off to set
yes,
up.
because she has to speak to her nephew who works as a cook on a ship to get these ingredients shipped to her. So she does that. She gets all these ingredients brought to her, and the scene when they're being delivered ashore and they're bringing in like a giant sea turtle. They're bringing in a box of quails, a case full of quails, this ice block, and the look on the villager's face of confusion. One important note: when the sisters think about what is actually supposed to transpire, they talk to the congregation about the idea that, you know what, we thought it was a good idea at first to allow her to cook. Do you
remember what provoked this conversation?
Yeah, so one of the sisters peeks her head in the kitchen and she sees these ingredients. She sees a pig's head and she sees like like the quail and all this stuff, and she leaves, and so firstly they're taken aback because they've only had, from my understanding, from what's shown in the film, they've only eaten like fish and
bread soup.
And bread soup. And so any other manner of meat, like quail, bird, or beef or anything like that, pork, whatever, they've never had that. So seeing the ingredients, seeing the slaughtered animal or whatever, the animal's head, it really threw one of the sisters for a loop. So she goes to bed at night, and like out of nowhere in this movie, there's this trippy dream sequence. And that shit had me dying.
Like you see the turtle engulfed in hellfire,
twitching, and then Babette has a glass of poison wine, and I just start dying laughing because I was like, wait a minute, is this shit about to turn dark? Like, it's like something bad about to happen? Is she really about? Are they rightfully worried that Babette's going to poison them or something like that? Because for a split second, when she asked them if she could cook dinner, and they said yeah, and she walked out, for a split second, there was a comment like, man, that'd be really fucked up if like she does something sinister with this meal. Because the way that this box looks, the box art for Babette's Feast looks on this Criterion case, like it doesn't look happy. Like, and Lisa was always like, when you said you was giving me this homework assignment, you didn't make it sound like it was gonna be like a cheerful movie. So I was like, is this shit gonna turn left and go dark? Is she gonna do something to these people? And it was a split second thought, and it was just like a what if type thing. Like that'd be fucked up if that happened. But then she has this nightmare, like 2 scenes later, and I was like, oh, shit might be about to go down. Like, it's not just me. And so the next couple of scenes are her preparing this meal. And so in conjunction with that, the general, well, actually the soldier guy, who's now gone on to have a pretty good career in the service and has become a general, he receives an invitation. Actually, his aunt that he went to stay with, that you mentioned he went to stay with to get his life together when he was younger, she receives an invitation, and she wants to bring him as a +1.
Yeah.
So there's
because you always do that Puritan parties. You always get a +1.
Right. So there's the reunion of Martine and the soldier Lorenz, and then the guy. What's the guy name in France? Paris.
Achille Pepin.
And Pepin. And so he's going to the soldier guy returns, and who returns? Who came back?
That's it.
Yeah.
Just
the
him
soldier
and
guy.
the aunt.
Okay, so him and the aunt come back. So they receive invitations. So they're coming. And so Babette is starting to prepare the meal. So the last 30 minutes of the movie or so is the preparation and also the dinner of the actual feast.
Right, and the discussions between the Puritans that they've gone into this agreement that they would eat the food, but they would not enjoy the food or talk about the food.
Sparked by the nightmare that's
right.
That was had. And so what they
So they are terrified. So this is like a death walk to this French dinner.
Right. So the nightmare prompted her to believe that maybe it was a mistake,
like some kind of Wiccan ritual.
Yeah, to allow her to cook this worldly food, this worldly feast, and where we would be indulging in these sinful things. So we'll eat, but we won't speak a word about the food. And so the meal is prepped. And that scene where she's doing all the preparing in the kitchen, and she's got the young kid in there helping her set the table, and she's got the other. Who was the guy in there that was? He
was the driver.
Okay, the driver.
It took me a little while to figure that out too. He's Johannes, the driver.
Yeah, he had a good gig. He just drove there. He waited in the kitchen, watched her prepare, got to taste all of the food.
Several glasses of champagne.
Got to taste of champagne and wine. So that was cool. So they set the table. Everyone arrives. All the guests arrive. The congregation arrives. And they're sitting at the table. And so earlier in the film, right before it was proclaimed that, the anniversary is coming up, there was a scene where the congregation's at the table with both sisters. And some time has passed since the passing of their father, and where the congregation is in this moment. And you can see that time has done what it does to people. Like it changes people. And sometimes when
that's a natural occurrence. But then also when you have people who were led by a particular figure and lived a particular way of life, when that leadership is gone, not only does time change you, but the absence of that person and their ideals change you. And we see these people they're at the point in their life now where, there's bickering between them, and the sense of fellowship has changed. And now they're just ornery old people, and
they're just pausing to sing a hymn while they're fighting about, you ripped me off on the timber and bloody bloody blah.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff from the past has been where that was at one
they're
point.
Just old people. Old people bicker.
Yeah, and so the sister says that this isn't lost on me. Like, we all have gotten away from, or you all have gotten away from, where we are supposed to be as a community and as a fellowship group. Like, you need to chill out. So we're gonna have this birthday thing. We're all gonna come here and we're gonna start acting correctly or whatever. But we're not gonna talk about the food. So they set the table. They sit down, and it's 4 courses. It's 4 courses, right?
I think it was 7.
Well, the soup.
There's the soup. There's the blintzes. There's the bird in the thing, and
the fruit
and the dessert and the coffee
and the salad.
The salad.
Okay,
yes, yeah. So 7.
So the 7-course meal begins with the turtle soup, and so
Lawrence did not get the memo to not talk about the food because he is not a Puritan,
which was for the best of the group, I think. So. Yeah. I want to backtrack a little bit to the introduction of Babette. Initially, I said that I wasn't engaged with the film early on, but when Babette was introduced, after we got through the introduction of the sisters and each party that they were connected to, and they introduced Babette, that's when, for whatever reason, I became engaged. Like, I liked her plight. Her being sent there and them taking her in, and then her finding a life, cultivating a life in this community.
Mm-hmm. Of just working selflessly. And by her being there, then the 2 women could live their passion of serving this community and carrying on their father's works and just taking care of the old people. Babette's being there freed them up to take care of the community.
Yes. So when she's introduced, that's when I sit up and I'm digging this character. I like this character. I like the story and what it's doing with this character. So from that point on, I was on board. So we're at the end in the 3rd act now, and they're presenting the food. Excuse me. And so in between meals, it's still. The congregation, the group there, there's still some of the bickering slightly, and they're still reminding each other, remember, we're not supposed to say anything about this food, regardless of how it tastes. But the whole time, and Babette, I don't even think it's known to her their plan of protest.
No, I don't think so.
But she's in the kitchen, whether it's known to her or not. She's in the kitchen, and she has been tirelessly slaving over this feast for them with just the utmost passion and selfless. I mean, she wants to do this. She's not bothered by it in the least, and she's doing it. And all this food is being prepared from a place of love and compassion and appreciation. And so every time they cut back to her in the kitchen doing this, preparing this meal, sending the next course out with love and with the instructions, it just made me really sympathize and empathize and connect with her character. Like, I really appreciated that.
But it was also clear that she was in her zone. That was her happy place. She
as evident by what she says, like at the end of the film. So more courses start coming out, and as you mentioned, what's the Lorenz? Like you mentioned, because he isn't a Puritan, he is a worldly traveler. He begins to influence the rest of the group to open up and accept the meal.
They see how he's consuming and enjoying the meal, and they go, oh, he brings the bowl to his lips, I'll bring the bowl to my lips. Oh, he eats the quail by the skull. I'll bite this tiny quail skull, you know.
But also what he does is give value to what they're experiencing, what they're eating, because to them it's just a bird in a pastry circle or whatever that thing was. But to have him say, excuse me, I've been all over the world and I've eaten in fancy restaurants, and there was this one time I was in this restaurant and this amazing chef who prepared this amazing meal, and it was the best thing in the world, and it was this thing that you're eating right now. To give their meal context, I really appreciated that's what his character was doing, regardless if it was the wine or...
We can't not mention the wine because there is a ton of booze.
Yeah.
And it's so cute, the little tiny cute old lady who tastes the champagne. She's like, must be some kind of lemonade.
Yeah. And then the other lady who, she took a sip of her water and she's like, nah, I don't want that. And then she took another swig of her wine. So, you know, over the course of the meal, you slowly see the group begin to give in to the indulgence of this moment, and appreciate what it is they're eating, with the help of Lorenz telling them, like, this isn't just a regular dish you're eating there. There's something special and of value in that. And even outside of that, I mean, there's value in that. The way it's being prepared and who it's being prepared by and why she's preparing it for them, right? So, towards the end of the meal, a couple of people who were bickering earlier are on friendlier terms now, and they're in places of acceptance and forgiveness.
And they towards the end of the meal, they start sharing sentimental reminiscences about the pastor. And even Lorenz is able to repeat the entire sermon that the pastor had given on his first visit. Like if the point of this meal was to appreciate the pastor and the pastor's works, that did happen. It did not become about the food. It did bring out these people's best characters, I think.
Yeah. And so the meal ends. Everyone ultimately leaves, and the two sisters go in to praise Babette, and they tell her that the meal was wonderful. They enjoyed it. They loved it, and the guests loved it, and they're appreciative of that being the last thing that she's going to cook before she leaves. And Babette tells them that she's not leaving. And so she goes to clean up the table, and she's telling them that, she said, I have nowhere to go, and plus I'm broke. And so the sister says, but you got 10,000 francs. And when she says I'm broke, before the sister says, but you had 10,000 francs. When she says I'm broke, I was like, oh shit, okay, I love this movie. Because I'm a sucker for genuine acts of kindness.
The selfless gesture.
I really am. I always have been, and I always will be. But seeing that specifically where we are in our state of affairs today in society, it's for me personally, it's so important for me to see these things, even if it's a fictionalized account of it. I have to be reminded that, there was somebody out there who thought to write a character with this heart. There's somebody who has a heart kind enough to write a person would do a kind thing like that. So even by extension, I'm still receiving this necessary positivity in my life. So when she said that, like it got me, like, and because I knew, like, before, like, when it came in to thank her, like, at that point I was like, all right, you know what, she's gonna stay, and she'll probably stay and use her money to help enrich the village or whatever here and there, or use it to have a comfortable life there or whatever. So, but she's gonna stay. At that point after the dinner, there wasn't any doubt in my mind that she wasn't leaving. But like, up until the point where she said that I'm broke, I didn't think that she spent all her money on that feast. But thinking back on the ingredients, thinking about, because she said that this is the type of meal that, she says, I worked in this fancy restaurant, and, a meal like this that I would prepare in that restaurant for 12 people is 10,000 francs. And like those people, like what those people were thinking of in their preconceived notions and what they thought was happening with that meal and that lady's intentions for preparing that meal, and how they were ready to dismiss it and say that it was coming from a place of ill intent, and they weren't going to tell her they appreciated the meal or it tasted good, not knowing like on the other side of that door was a woman who gave up everything she had, the most money she'd ever seen in her life and probably will ever see in her life, for one dinner, like for one meal. Not no special glasses, take home glasses, and no. All right, this is a $10,000 meal, so take a picture of it. Remember, we're going to talk about this meal. We're not talking about anything else. We're going to talk about this $10,000 meal. We're not going to talk about the pastor. We're not going to talk about anything else. Each course that comes out, we need to have a discussion about it because it's a $10,000 meal you're eating. Like none of that. She allowed those people to fellowship in their own way and not worry about how much that meal costs to prepare, not worry about who is preparing it, but to fellowship and reminisce on that guy, that the pastor who affected their lives and changed their lives. So it wasn't just a selfless act in that, oh, she's just preparing a meal for these people. It wasn't just a selfless act in that she spent all her money. I mean, it was a selfless act in that she did all those things, prepared the meal, spent all her money, but also allowed that to not be about the meal. And like you mentioned, Lisa, let it be about those things that they ended up talking about and cherishing and reminiscing over.
Mm-hmm. And she's in the kitchen the whole time.
Yep.
She never comes out.
Yep.
But the feedback that she does get back is those plates come back clean as a whistle.
And she proclaims to them that she's not leaving. And there was a line in there about, it was earlier on, I want to say, about one of the greatest song from an artist's heart is to leave me to my just due, let me do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that was for her. Like you said, like she was in her zone. Like that's all. Like that was her reward, being left alone to create these beautiful things that would enrich these people's lives, even for this one moment, this one sit down. And she says that. She says, she liked being able to do that for them. And I don't know, like I wasn't expecting, for whatever reason. It's not, not in thinking about it, it's not like that revelation or whatever comes out of nowhere. Like, I mean, it makes sense. But for whatever reason, like I wasn't thinking about it in those terms, and I wasn't expecting that. Like I knew she wasn't going to leave ultimately, but it didn't click until very late in the game. Like, oh shit, like she spent all her money on those people. And then the implication of like what that meant for that gesture to me just...
And what that showed the two women, because at the end of the film, both of their stories with both of their dreams get wrapped up.
They have closure, yeah.
They have closure on those. So at the beginning of the film, when Lorenz said that, Lorenz was leaving the community, he told Martine, I'm not coming back because clearly, you don't want me, you have no feelings for me, and being with you is just impossible.
Yeah.
And he used the word impossible. And then as he's leaving that meal, he just was like, this evening with you, I just want you to know that I've always been with you and you've always been with me. And through this meal and through this time back here, it feels, as if no time has passed and that all things are possible.
Yeah.
And so she has the satisfaction of, even though she never had a family life, she never had a husband, she never had kids, she always had that love, the love of Lorenz. And then on the other side, after the meal, they are sitting down for the final course of coffee and brandy.
Yeah.
And the sister sits at the piano and she plays and sings a hymn. And it is so beautiful. And the congregation is so clearly contented in how, and the beauty of the evening and the beauty of her voice. And she's clearly singing with her heart and really making this moment magical for them with their talent. So at the end of the movie, the part of the end of the movie that really gets me is how Babette and Philippa really get to bond as artists. Like Babette's not like, well, this is the next best thing to cooking and being a famous chef back in Paris at the Café Anglais.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, I might as well just cook for some Puritans. That's not what she's saying. She's saying, I'm doing what I do with my whole heart, and it doesn't matter who I do it for. And that resonates so completely with Philippa, who knows in her heart she is an artist, she is a musician, she's a singer, and it doesn't matter if she's not, in Paris. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter that she's not this great diva, because she gets to do her art for people who really, really appreciate it. And just that idea that an artist is never poor. An artist always leads a full life. And I just love that thought. And for Babette. For Philippa to tell Babette that one day her art too, her cooking, will enchant the angels. And it creates this synchronicity with her experience with Monsieur Pepin.
Yep. So, and then the candle blows out in the window and then it goes off. And, so I was watching it, and again, it took a while for me to get engaged. They introduced Babette.
It's a really slow film. It is meditative.
But it is, but not to
boring.
Its detriment, because it suits the life that those people lead. They don't live a fast life. It feels appropriate. So, things kick into gear, and I'm like, you know what? I actually enjoy it. So I gave it 3 stars. And then she goes to clean the table. She says, I got no money. Y'all just ate my shit. And I just gave it a whole nother star. I was like, this is, I don't know, that was just the best. But it made everything else. It made everything else mean more to me. And then especially in talking about it, with you, I don't know. Again, I'm just a sucker for kind gestures and selfless acts. They really get to me, on a personal level. And I just thought that it was beautiful. And because even up until that point, she could have said, you know what, thank you all for allowing me to put this meal together. I know y'all didn't want me to do it. I know y'all liked it even if you didn't want to say it, but it's cool. I'm going to France now. Peace. Or I'm just going to clean the table and go upstairs. See you tomorrow. And it could have went off like that. And I'd have been like, you know what? That was beautiful. That meal, how she prepared it, the way that it was shot, the way that they had the table set up, that last act was beautiful. But when that revelation of the sacrifices she made was shown, that just took the beauty to a whole other level for me. And
I just wonder what this little village is going to be like in the last, these people are old.
Yeah.
So
Everyone's boning.
Decade that it exists.
Yeah.
Will they, because their puritanical vision was so much about doing without, that they got their holiness, they got their righteousness and satisfaction out of doing without. And now maybe through this meal with Babette and this experience they had, maybe they'll finally be able to do with, appreciate what they have and and enjoy the end of their life. But odds are they're all going to sober up in the morning. They're all going to have wicked hangovers, and they're like, I knew it.
That was the thing. I was like, why aren't any of these people drunk? They don't normally drink wine.
That was so
and they're
much
cracking
fucking
bottles right
food.
now. I was like, they should be nuts off their ass right now.
That was so much food.
They're gonna
be sleepy as fuck.
diarrhea.
I was gonna say that was one of my thoughts. I was like, in the morning, that whole village is gonna have the shits. They are introducing something into their anatomical ecosystem, their physiological ecosystem that they are not used to. And in the morning, it's gonna be and bubble guts. It's gonna be bad.
She's going to be riding back to Paris on a wave of Puritan shit.
So yeah, that's the alternate ending for that, ladies. You stay for the stinger. That's in the stinger. But yeah, so I appreciated it way more than I imagined. So
Yay!
Thank you. I needed that.
That warms my... Like, it really is a heartwarming movie, and it was a movie that my family returned to again and again. My mom loves this movie, and it amuses me because it at its face, you know, you can say that it's a little bit anti-religious, like, you know, just, you know, don't follow the rules, do your thing, and, you know, and that in itself will glorify God. But I don't know. I love it, and I always love an artist's message. Anything reminding me to do my art.
It is an interesting film for your family to love.
Right. But at the same time, we love the Food Network. We will watch that shit all day. Every day is Babette's Feast.
I've really enjoyed sitting in on this conversation. You know, I watched the film with Lisa. This was the second time I'd seen it, and I really, really liked the movie.
Yeah.
But this was just fun to be a part of. Just sit in between you two.
Well, I think that this, because I was anticipating talking about it, this is the time where I felt like I caught more. I was really engrossed and looking for those things that I go, like, you know, watching Babette's Feast, going like, what will Darren think of this film? Will Darren notice this? Will Darren notice that? Yeah. Well, it really is a different way to engage in
honestly,
the movie.
In a lot of ways, I think this is, you know, the perfect Itmod homework movie where, you know, Darren would not have gone to Hollywood Video or the iTunes page and rented Babette's Feast. This had to be placed in his hands.
But I don't even know how my family ended up watching it. It's like so scattershot. My family's like, we watched this on Three Amigos. That was pretty much it.
Right. But in your watch of this time, in saying like, Darren, here is a cinematic piece of my heart. Let's try to figure out why together. I think you engaged with this film in a way you had not done so previously. And I think the conversation you two have had has been really lovely.
Now he's going to be telling everybody about Babette's Feast. He's going to be dressed as a female Puritan at Comic-Con. He's going to be doing some fucking Babette cosplay.
Babette. Yeah.
Dude, we should do Babette cosplay. He'll be Babette, and I'll be one of those birds.
I'll be Monsieur Pepin. Oh, yeah, I'll wrap you in phyllo. Yeah. I will bite you by the skull.
All right, and I do have a criticism though. If I'm going to be honest, full disclosure, I didn't think the food looked good.
I know, it's creepy.
It just looked weird. Like, it just looked weird.
You didn't want to, when they brought out that cage of birds, the quails, you're like, can't wait to see that get cooked
but then the way they cooked it, like with the head, and he ate the head, and like...
yeah, no, that was gross. I thought that the bundt cake full of syrup looked fucking good.
Oh, yeah.
The bundt cake, the fruit plate looked really good.
You guys are heathens. It all looked delicious to me. And what I get from the film is... we need more 7-course meals in our lives. You know, we heat up the oven. We cook one meal. We sit down in front of Captain America: The First Avenger. We eat and we leave. This is an experience.
I don't even know how you fit all that stuff in your body.
I mean,
I was like, how do
I can show you.
I wonder if it, like, when they left, it was like dark. I wonder if it like started at like noon and they just ate all day.
Because that was a lot of food.
That was a ton of food.
And then they brought like not a slice of cake, but if you were to have like a slice of Cheesecake Factory layer cake, the tall cake, well, just imagine a slice of cheese brought out to you like that. Not a small square on a toothpick. Like each person got a slice.
But they've been
that was a cheesecake.
God damn. damn.
But all they've been eating is like dried fish and ale bread.
Again.
So
So
all of
they're
that
like,
stuff.
they don't know when this is going to happen again. So
Right.
they're like, I better consume it all.
So while I see stuff that doesn't look pleasing to the eye, to them, all that stuff was just amazing to them because all
But-
they've eaten is fish and bread.
But the
bread
way
soup.
that they eat it, the way that they're just transformed by the food, you know that shit's good.
Yeah.
And plus, anything wrapped in phyllo is. I would eat a shoe wrapped in phyllo dough.
Oh man! All right. So Brad, you're
sir.
next up as far as my homework assignments. Am I
Oh, but you
correct?
gotta rank them.
Oh no, not yet. He's
He-
got to give me one first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're only 2 movies in, Lisa.
I'm so sorry. I got ahead of myself.
It's a sneak peek. If you, as of right now, you're in the lead.
No, you think
So-
this is Babette's Feast is better than Magic Mike XXL?
It made me feel warm and fuzzy at the end. I don't know. Magic Mike has way better like dance
But
sequences.
what about the theme of indulgence? How through indulgence you can become your true self. That's something that happens in Magic Mike XXL and Babette's Feast.
It does. All right. Well, we're both tied.
And being your true artist.
This is a real challenge to follow up Magic Mike XXL and Babette's Feast. Despite that similarity, Lisa, they are fairly different films in tone and execution.
But they're both about fellowship and community and
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can make my film fit in that. Last Wednesday, Darren and I had the opportunity to catch an advanced screening of Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
And beforehand, we had what has become now, I think, 2 weeks in a row ritual of going to TGI Fridays
Yep.
and having Caesar salads together. And over those Caesar salads, I was telling him I'm looking at some older black and white movies and some westerns, and I narrowed it down to a couple classic movies that I really wanted to discuss because it's been a while since we've gone classic with our ItMod homework.
Yeah.
And then the conversation shifted to the 10th anniversary of David Fincher's Zodiac, and he admitted to me that he does not think he has ever seen Zodiac before.
I don't think I've ever seen Zodiac.
And that blew my mind because I thought Darren was a David Fincher fan, and to skip over David Fincher's masterpiece, his ultimate film, it is not Fight Club, it is not Seven, it is not Alien 3.
Whoa.
No, it is Zodiac from 2007, filmed just 1 year before Robert Downey Jr. would awaken as the Iron Man for the MCU, and shot 2 years after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So we're in the middle of the RDJ Renaissance.
Really?
Comes Zodiac. And he is of a trilogy of characters who are trying to discover who is the man behind the Zodiac letters in San Francisco in 1969 to, you'll see. You don't know. But you've got the Incredible Hulk, you got Iron Man, you got the Prince of Persia, all in one film.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty great movie. And so
I
that's your homework.
I think that you could tie in like the themes of You Do You, because a serial killer, that's a big time hobby, and he really put his whole heart and soul
He's
into
indulging
it.
in that.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Zodiac is if you go in expecting the serial killer's point of view, you're going to be disappointed. This is really about the investigation
It's
and
procedural.
the obsession. It's more akin to something like All the President's Men than Seven. So
Okay.
I'm excited. I just rewatched it not too long ago. I have a Blu-ray for you,
Yes,
sir.
thank you.
And it's got 2 discs, an extra disc of special features, and it's got a really great commentary track with crime author James Ellroy that I would also recommend. It's nearly 3 hours, but
Yikes.
worth every second of it.
All right, I'm gonna wait till Wednesday to watch it. That's when I pick up my new 4K TV.
Ooh.
When you
My
bring it over
phone
here.
is ready for upgrade. I checked.
Yes, do it.
So I'll get the iPhone 8 when it
All
comes
right.
out.
Thank you, Brad, for that. Thank you, Lisa, for Babette's Feast.
Yay! I'm so glad you liked it. I was
so glad I
so
liked it,
scared
too.
of you
What?
dismissing it.
Why? I wasn't going to do that. I was
Oh,
gonna find
sometimes you
something
can be
to-
contrarian, but then I
can.
remembered I'm not Brian. He's nice to me.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Lisa, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Sidewalk Siren.
And Brad.
And watch Babette's Feast, and you can Twitter me about it, and then I'll Twitter at you too.
Yeah, if you've got that Filmstruck subscription, you can watch it on there.
The Alamo should do a screening of that and then do a full food.
That's a lot of
Sorry.
pressure on that cook, Darren.
I'm just saying.
It costs $10,000 for 12 Puritans.
Well, that's back in the... Oh, yeah, inflation. Never mind, Alamo. I'm not paying that ticket price.
I'll eat a quail though. Make me a quail, Alamo.
Quail skull?
Quail
Francisco?
Scrunchy.
Brad, tell the people they can find you.
You can find me on all social medias at MouthDork. And stay tuned. Tomorrow, Thursday, should be dropping our next ItMod Chatcast with filmmaker Maddie Doe. Her film, Dearest Sister, is available on Shudder. If you've picked up that subscription, you'll enjoy the heck out of that movie.
Yeah, Thursday being tomorrow, right?
Thursday being tomorrow, yes.
Yes, which means that Wednesday that I will be watching Zodiac is actually today. I'm actually watching it right now while you're listening to this
Time
podcast
travel.
on my new TV.
What is
so,
this,
yeah.
Hamlet 2?
Yeah. I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, at the Disco Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. We hope you got a chance to check out our review cast for Logan. If not, do so. And again, be on the lookout for our ItMod Chatcast. And then our Fistful Friday coming up with a Fistful of Kings. So that's great.
And in 2 weeks, after Zodiac, a week after Zodiac, it's time for
Dude.
ItMod Film Club.
Oh, yeah.
Old Boy.
I'm so excited.
Tweet.
I haven't watched that movie since college.
Tweet at us using the hashtag ItMod Film Club
Yep.
and join the conversation about the Park Chan-wook
Are
classic.
Are you going to do the live eel challenge?
That
It's
was
an
an
octopus,
Whatever.
Lisa.
Arr, arr, arr.
I'm not doing it. And you know what? I'm going to do it.
I would. Probably not.
Not here.
I would it. All right, that's going to do it for us.
You could eat Snakey.
Whoa.
Aw.
Kong does the
She's not
octopus challenge. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.